Hello, my name is Vivek Venugopal, and I'm a composer, producer, mixing and mastering engineer, and I've released 12 albums under the moniker of Visita, and you're listening to Stalwarts of Music.
Hi, Vivek. Namaskaram to you, and welcome to an all new season of Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera. It is such a pleasure to have someone so profound from my own country be part of the show. I couldn't be more delighted, and it was very interesting for me to go through your body of work over the past few weeks, right? And of course, the evolution process has been drastic over the years. I'd like to go back in time and ask you this very question. When you look back at the early fingerstyle period now, right, do you see it as a self contained chapter of your artistic identity in the sense of, say, foundational vocabulary being built? Or do you still feel that that strands are still ongoing as part of your orchestral language right now in terms of your musical work?
Yeah. So yeah, I started off as a guitarist primarily
Right.
who composed music for the guitar.
Hmm.
And, so I was just limited to that uh, strand of music. Like I was, I was more of an instrumentalist. So I thought of myself as a guitarist first, and
Hmm.
I was just trying to compose for my instrument. So I did it. So then slowly, but yeah, I did love the fact that the one of the major things that attracted me to solo acoustic music, guitar, and it was the acoustic nature of the whole thing, right? So that I believe has stayed because I've just kept adding layers to that, and the love for acoustic texture for that has remained. But musically, what happened was I began as a guitarist, and then slowly I deviated from that. I started composing. The ideas that I had in my head were not possible. I was not able to execute them on the guitar. It was impossible. It was not just me. It was just not made. The ideas were not suited to the instrument anymore after a period of time, and then I had to branch out, and I taught myself how to notate actually, and just one instrument, two instruments, just a piano. It opened up a whole world, of all kinds of things that I couldn't do on the guitar, and I became liberated and gave me a sense of great power and freedom to express much more complicated and interesting ideas and soundscapes that I was getting in my head.
Yeah, I love how you said, you felt liberated when you had the right mediums, the right tools, and the knowledge factor involved. And of course, you expanded from your earlier work as primarily a guitar player. And I'm sure, there has been a transition where the instrumentation has also expanded, right? So I would like to understand from you as a musician, how did the storytelling impulse evolve as the instrumentation expanded for you, Vivek?
It's a good question. It's I For a long period of time I believed that I needed to have a narrative attached to the music. It was, even the word visita that I named my project as, or you could call it my stage name, or somewhere in between that. Even so, visita is actually the light before dusk, just at
Okay.
twilight.
Hmm.
So it was, in a sense, it was me trying to merge music and another world, another art form. And I was very interested in this kind of philosophy in the early stages of my career. And it ranged from, I've read a lot of philosophy, I've delved into poetry, and I love painting. I don't paint myself, but I'm very inspired by the visual arts. And uh, so so I really wanted to harmonize these two, like the way the dusk unites the night and day. That is what I wanted to do, and that's where I started to come up with these narratives, themes for the music. And yeah, so that's the story of that. And but gradually it faded away because I started to realize that I'm kind of limiting the scope of that music if I'm trying to direct the listener to a certain narrative. Because I had people coming up to me and telling me that uh, you know I didn't get what you were trying to connect with the music and the narrative, but I imagined something completely different. And then I realized that, considering I work with instrumental music almost entirely, uh, I didn't want to limit the power or the scope of that art, of what I make. And I wanted the listener to take it wherever they wanted to. And then I kind of stopped doing that, the narrative aspect of the thing, and I just started naming my music like Opus 21, Opus 20. uh, it became like that. It's just a piece of work, which is basically the classical notation, the way people used to do it, right? Like over the years. And I felt that stayed true to the art form and did not distract the listener in terms of the narrative. So that's what I was planning on doing with that. So yeah.
It's pretty cool that you mentioned that the visual aspects of music are also equally important for someone like you, along with the different layers of music that you try to put together, right? And another interesting facet that you mentioned, and from some of your older interviews, what I gathered was you've often said that if they understand your music, they understand you as a person, right? That being said, how do you navigate the vulnerability inherent in encoding so much of your identity into your compositions per se?
So it is, firstly, it is an abstract medium. So
Mm,
it is not like I am explicitly stating what I'm, who I am or what I'm
mm,
doing.
mm,
So it is like a sonic autobiography of
mhm.
who I am. That's how I look at it. Like, you can look at it as an autobiography, sonic autobiography, or a soundtrack of my
Right,
life.
right.
Like, so people may not attach the same meaning as what I had intended, maybe by
Mm,
being autobiographical. It's an abstract, sonic autobiography.
mm.
Yeah. So
If I had to interpret your music, I would describe it as music from an artisan who intends it to be non-commercial, right? Whereas we are living in a algorithm-driven era where listening is completely algorithm based, right? So what does it mean to you to stake out a position of slow handcrafted creation where you put a lot of effort into thinking of each aspect, and talk to me a little bit about the accessibility factor also. How are you addressing that?
the accessibility towards
Accessibility towards listeners consuming it, right?
Uh, so yeah, I have never looked at my music as a product, like only when you have that kind of thinking do you start to think about demographics, or like, okay, maybe this age group, and they will relate to my music, and these are the key areas that this is what I'm trying to project. Or it's Independence Day and let's do something patriotic.
Right.
Yeah, I know all of these tricks that people do, and but I have never really bothered in terms of that. I believe it is my job to just make the art and put it out there in the world. It is like I owe the world that art. Like it, I almost look at it that way. And uh, and I do not expect anything in return, to be honest. Like, even if there's nothing that I get out of it, like in terms of financial or monetary, aspects, I'm not bothered by it, like, to be honest. And I and I don't really look at that accessibility as something. It's not a product in a sense. It is a work of art, and it is not my job to perceive it. It is the world's job to perceive it, and they will do it however the people please. Like, so, uh, yeah, I it's non-commercial, as I said. Like, when you make, like, if there's a product that is being made by a company, they think about these things, like, this is what we are trying to do. And but this is not a business. I'm just trying to make some art. That's all I'm trying to do.
Very cool, very cool. But again, I was also trying to understand as to, the listener base. Of course, I mean, I'm not sure if you have kind of kept track of all of that, but uh, just to get a general sense of how are you able to reach out to the masses right now in terms of your music, because it is indeed like very profound and well thought, and it's got like a lot of work being put into it, right? So in terms of outreach, how is it going to the masses at this point in time?
I'd say that it's not really going to the masses at this point in time. So I am attempting to get it out into the masses, but it the thing is, with my kind of music, it really needs uh, a lot of performances, and
Mm,
it
mm.
needs, like, publicity. Everything requires promotion, publicity, and it's
Okay.
not like I'm behind the label, and I'm doing, I'm self-producing these,
Hmm.
and so I tend to, like, run out of the budget by the time I reach, the
Hmm.
post-production stage. And uh, so promotion, I don't really spend any money on promotion, or
Hmm.
because there's so much work to do. And there's always a huge backlog, that there's like 2 years of work that's not reached the world at
Got it.
any point. And but yeah, I am slowly trying to look at, performances, and once that starts, it's going to be a much larger audience. It can reach many more people. As of now, it hasn't reached everyone it could, well, whose music has, I guess, like, if you look at it that way. But I do hope that it will reach more people. It is still at an abstract stage at this point. It's like a obscure thing at this point. But yeah, I guess things will change.
Are you planning an India tour anytime soon?
It's extremely difficult to, source musicians in
Hmm.
India, which is why I tend to work abroad more than anywhere else. Like,
Okay.
it was I was writing wind quintets in the middle of my career, and, like, there were literally no bassoonists in India, for instance. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
no one has even heard of that instrument.
Right.
Uh, so I can't really, perform those works here. There's a lot of repertoire that can be done, like, can be performed, and but I have to do it abroad, and then maybe gradually, some of the famous, like, some of the more, popular works for the common instruments, those could be done in India, like things like for piano or some strings, and though along those lines, we could do those works here. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm concentrating on building a large repertoire at the moment. Like, I've got 12 albums. I'm currently at my 31st work. I've finished, like, till opus 31 as of now. And so the idea is it can all happen at the same time once things move forward. There can be performances everywhere, all
Right.
across the world, without me even being there. People can just look at the score and start
Right.
performing it. This is how it kind of works. Like, and there were some occasional commissioned works as well. So we see where it takes us. That's my philosophy here.
Got it. You spoke a great deal about the scores and all of that. So I'd like to talk a little more on that process, right? So your scores are reportedly detailed, yet you prize performers, in a particular performance. You kind of let them interpret their own inputs, right? Like be it an ensemble or an orchestra for that matter. So where do you draw the line between what must be fixed on that page and what must remain indeterminate to preserve in terms of a live performance?
That's a good question again. Uh, it depends on a case to case basis always, but in general, the rhythm and yeah, the notes are of course in almost all cases stated,
Hmm.
and rhythm is kind of stated. But then there are, for instance, if I say, you know, a ritarando, rallentando, that is an instruction that you can give on the sheet, and that means that you can you're to gradually become slower, go slower. So, to what you cannot state to what extent that happens or how it happens. There are dynamic levels that you state as a composer, like a mezzo forte, forte, piano. So, a piano is a soft. It means soft. It is instructed. The instruction is a P, and it means play softly. But it's you'd never know how soft the person is going to play, and then that it becomes a phrasing again is another thing that you can write a phrase, but uh, people can musicians tend to like play a bit of rubato. A rubato is like stealing time, like instead of playing the phrase exactly as it's written in terms of the rhythm, they kind of steal time. Rubato is in a sense uh, Italian for stealing time, and
Right.
they tend to like play the first set of phrases, first set of the notes faster maybe, and then slower on the other section, but then meet again. So you cannot control these, and so I would just write those instructions, and then I would wait and witness what they're trying to do with it, and then the way they gel, right? Like the way all of them come together. That is again, you cannot write that. It comes with experience. It comes with playing together in an ensemble, and these aspects, I cannot write down as a composer, and I have to trust an experienced, musician to execute. So yeah, so as a composer, you have fairly decided what you want to leave to the musician and what you are kind of stating to be exact and precise. And occasionally, I have in the past, I have worked with jazz a bit and all that, and so yeah, there I've just laid out a background of sorts, like a chord, a set of chord progressions, or like an accompaniment, and then I've
Right.
asked the musician to kind of just go for it. But yeah, that is how I draw the line between these two things.
Yeah. I'd like to now touch upon the main topic of interest, your latest release, the Raga Poems, Opus 22, and Liberation, Opus 18 as well. Right. So, in terms of this particular record, the instrumentation for Raga Poems combines a lot of unique set of instruments, right? You have a string quintet, if I'm not mistaken, the piano, and of course the flute as well, which can be heard throughout the course of this particular record. But this is not a traditional raga ensemble one listens to, right? So, what inspired you to choose this particular Western chamber ensemble to express Indian raga material? And how do the timbres of these instruments influence your approach to the raga's overall soundscape?
Yeah. So yeah, this I released this album, a few months ago, and
Right,
it released another album after that. We'll
right,
discuss that later. But regarding raga poems, it was a very interesting. It started off as an experiment,
mm,
really.
mm,
Uh, I wanted to see what I could do within the constraints of a raga. Or to be more specific, I did not go into I did not follow all the rules that a raga states. For
okay,
there are also, rules about how you go up in the scale, how you go down.
Yeah.
uh, there's several strict rules, and there are like phrases that you are supposed to include also. And so I did not do all of that. I just took a template of notes
Mm.
that the raga is in a sense, and I took that template and used it as a constraint.
Mm-hmm.
And then I composed for Western instruments. And the idea was to harmonize ragas also,
Right.
like because Indian classical music, as developed in terms of rhythm and melody that it is, there is no conception of harmony in terms of Indian music. Like just in terms of maybe some dyads, that's it, like a drone and another note,
Mm.
a fifth and or fourth and another note. That's the only precedent we have in Indian music. But in Western music, of course, there's no end to the number of the density, the vertical thinking that you can do. And I am primarily, I believe, a vertical thinker in terms of like harmony is something that is very important to me. And I wanted to see what harmonic possibilities are available in a raga. And it was surprising, the kind of even the musicians, had never played Indian music before, and I did not want it to be Indian music in a sense. It was supposed to be something that's neither Western or nor is it Indian, like something like that. And the textures that came out were surprisingly good, and I was very happy with what happened there. And what I did with that piece, and I actually wrote raga poems too. The second version, I explored three more ragas, and
Mm.
this time it's going to be for a wind ensemble and piano. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. So.
Mm, mm. If you look at the base of classical Indian music, it's definitely known for its improvisatory ethos, right? Whereas your pieces are, of course, they are notated as well, right? So in raga poems, did you allow any space for performers to improvise, or did you aim to capture the feel of raga spontaneity entirely throughout the written score?
I was trying to capture it by thought in a
Mm,
sense. Like
mm,
I didn't want to give a room for improvisation here, but yeah, that
mm,
I could maybe explore that as well in the future. But I
mm,
was trying to be like very Western in thinking, like
mm, mm.
keeping everything notated uh, and seeing what arises. So in between these worlds, I
Right.
want to see what arose, and yeah, it was quite interesting, the result. Yeah.
As you previously mentioned, of course, it is neither in completely in the traditional regional Carnatic space or Hindustani space, nor is it like in a neoclassical sense, right? So, of course, it is great music at the end of the day. That being said, do you ever consider releasing different versions of each of these pieces, perhaps instrumental or, say, remixed interpretations to explore the adaptability of this thought?
Yeah, as in, as I said, it started off as an experiment, and I, went into it, and that was the first fully executed version of
Mm,
that
mm,
vision. And it's just the beginning, and I don't expect to, build my identity around it. For instance, just the next piece in the same album, Liberation, it has nothing to do with Indian music whatsoever, for instance. So, but it's again for the string quintet and a piano. So, uh, I, I do not want this concept to define me as a composer. It is just one of the many places I want to go to, like sonic realms I would like to explore and go to. And yeah, we'll see what comes of it in the future. The There is a scope wherein I could maybe work with someone who is educated in terms of Indian music. Some, I could maybe hand out an accompaniment, like a very well laid out, well thought of accompaniment, and ask them to kind of improvise over that. That could be an option as well. I believe that falls in the scope of the vision I had, but that would be, maybe Raga Poems 3, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You also did mention that you're not trying to build an identity around this, right? Uh, you've been like striving for constant evolution and experimentation and just exploration in the sense, right? So building this sense of artistic maturity and having this clarity at this phase in terms of your musical pursuit, what aspects of your craft or philosophy are currently undergoing transformation? If you could point a finger at some of those elements and help me understand at a mundane level.
Okay. So I'm really working with texture a lot. Like, okay, there is one chord that you want to like express, say, a one chord and a melody, say. And but there are infinite ways to kind of express that, especially in the realm of an orchestra and bigger ensembles. And it's I'm really trying to find a very original voice in terms of orchestration. I've been working with a very big ensemble, writing for a very big ensemble, and revising it a bit. And so that is definitely one of the aspects that I'm looking at. Uh, I've been trying to like even bring instruments, give a little more respect to some instruments that maybe weren't, there's maybe not as much repertoire for that instrument in the world of music in terms of contemporary music and all that. For instance, like the vibraphone. You have a lot of vibraphone in jazz and in other genres, but there's just like a few aspects, a few, not a lot of music in terms of that I have found in terms of the vibraphone in the contemporary sense. So I wrote a piece for that. I'm trying to look for these opportunities of, wherein say there's an instrument or like a set of instruments that maybe have not been like, there's not too much repertoire for it maybe. So I've been trying to work with these kinds of so I wrote two pieces with the vibraphone, and that is another aspect that I've been exploring. And yeah, it's an endless field of study. Like for me, it's difficult to pinpoint when you just ask me right there, but there's so many aspects that I'm constantly working on building, and it's like a continuum wherein I've started somewhere and I keep building on the thoughts that I've had before. And I've actually been trying to reduce repetition, eliminate any form of repetition from my music. uh, there's already quite little, but I've tried to eliminate every strand of it. uh, I feel that a lot of forms are based on repetition, and that kind of grounds the listener in a way, I guess. But as you keep searching for newer music, and I was not bothered by the form of it. Or of course I know what the form is and I have composed in the form, with that form before. I'm trying to break form. I'm trying to break the barriers of form. That is another aspect of what I'm trying to do right now. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd probably, if I can, if I was given a little more time, I would come up with maybe 3 4 more points. But it's like it's an ongoing thing, right? You can never, it never ends. It's like there was, I think, Rachmaninoff, who said uh, music is enough for a lifetime, but a lifetime is not enough for music. Like, so I don't think I have enough time to do everything that I want to do.
Hmm.
So let's see how much I can manage in one lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see your endless pursuit, over the years. You know, yeah, that'll be a very interesting one for sure. Apart from that, do you see any other unresolved problems that you're trying to solve as a composer, Vivek?
Unresolved problems. So let me, I'll have to again think about this a bit. But I think music, given if it reaches a certain level of maturity, it goes beyond just notes or like rhythms and harmonies. It becomes something else, and we as composers, we try to find these moments and that depth, uh, so as to be able to express something that cannot be expressed in some senses.
Hmm.
And I guess I'm working with creating something that is deep, that maybe points people in a direction in a way. Like I do not know how it helps them or how, but a lot of people have said that I felt very calm. I felt it gave me clarity. It gave me, like, I found some direction in the music, and that's very interesting to note, because I did not set out on a mission to like express those things. So it's I don't know. So I'm not trying to, in a sense, solve problems or like explicitly state them in a way, but I'm just trying to create depth and passion and artistic, you know, music, so that people can take it wherever they please. That's, I believe, what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's the spirit of a true artist, to let people interpret whatever they want to, right, out of the music, rather than driving them to a certain narrative or direction in that sense. Yeah, that's a really really commendable thing that you do as an artist, and I must appreciate that. Yeah. Well, if we had to talk about some of your other releases, another interesting one was an ode to the morphing muse, right? You have described the work as an ode to every muse who has influenced your life, right? So, how do you interpret the idea of a muse in present day, and how has the relationship evolved for you as a composer?
Ah, you know, it, it's not just what I meant by muse was not just like the romantic notion of it, or like this is uh, a beautiful woman, or as in, yeah, there have been instances along those lines, but it's more about some a muse for me is it could be an artist's work, for
Hmm.
instance.
Hmm.
Like it could be a poem, it could be a painting, it could be anything. It could be some philosophical thing. It could be something I see happening in society. Like I for instance, I wrote a piece about global warming. uh,
Correct. Correct.
I That was my first string quartet,
Hmm.
and that I was deeply moved by that. And you know, in that sense, maybe I was trying to solve a problem with that one piece. But
Hmm.
again, it's not, as I mentioned in the previous answer, it was not. It's an abstract way of dealing
Yeah.
with the situation, and I'm not directly trying to influence it. So the muse was more, what I meant by muse was it could be any of these things. And I also included morphing muse, as it's for instance, it keeps changing, like
Hmm.
what this muse is and what drives you or what you think about passionately. So I wanted to celebrate that in a
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
And as I, yeah, and ode too comes from my poetry, my
Okay.
love of poetry. So that's how that name was built. So
Right.
that. about
Right.
that.
And in this particular release, if you had to talk about certain tracks, track 4 starts as a single melodic line,
Yeah,
and it evolves into a layered ensemble, right? So
yeah.
do you often write, of course, I'm just trying to stitch all of this together. Initially, you mentioned that you write vertically, right? With a harmony first approach, right? Do you always do this linear process, or was it some sort of a departure for you as a musician?
The writing
Yes. Yeah.
the single line of
Yeah.
melody.
Yeah.
So yeah, as in I the ensemble I was working with significantly affected, that decision of structuring it that way.
Mm.
I was working with the soprano, alto,
Right.
piano, cello, and violin. Yeah,
Correct.
piano and cello, yeah, and a guitar. I
Mm.
it was my last album as a recording artist. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
So, yeah, with that ensemble, and I was listening to a lot of choral music at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I just wanted to create a sense of a choir,
Okay.
and then I built from there. So that's how that came about. But in general, yeah, it is a more harmonic approach, wherein the harmony first approach.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
Right on. Talking about your latest release, which is our main topic of interest, I want to understand the arc that you had set. If I had to describe it, maybe an archetype of sorts. How did you kind of stitch the overall theme for this particular release?
yeah. So it consists of very different pieces, of
Mm.
course.
Mm.
So I was just trying to keep those two pieces separate firstly, and the two pieces have nothing to do with each other. That
Mm.
was so
Independent.
the album in a sense doesn't have a theme, but
Mm.
it is the separate pieces have themes
Okay.
in terms of what I was trying to explore.
Mm.
So, an Aeolian triptych, for instance, that is inspired by the wind and
Okay.
by air, in a sense,
Oh
the
wow. Okay.
textures that you can get through that. And
Interesting.
inspiration and Aeolian is also the meaning of the word Aeolian is of or relating to wind,
Mm.
air, along those lines. So
Yeah.
the instruments I chose were this was the first time I was trying to like uh, you know not the first time, but yeah, one of the few times wherein I've had a big theme first and then
Right.
I've chosen instrumentation that suited the theme.
Mm.
So I picked a harp, and then I picked a flute and a bassoon.
Okay.
So two wind instruments, and the harp is, it has this quality of being, of sounding like the wind, like especially with those glissandos and those
Yeah.
the texture of the instrument, especially when it blends in this, it sounds in many ways as though it's being caused by the air or
Mm. Mm.
so. And it was conceptualized it in three movements, so it became a triptych.
Okay.
So again, these were, I was very influenced by a triptych,
Mm.
a painting, a set of three paintings,
Okay.
and I wanted to do something with with air, wind as the concept,
Okay.
and then I chose the instruments and I, named it a triptych to kind of mention it that way,
Mm.
kind of link it to that feeling of looking at a painting,
Mm.
triptych painting. So that was about that piece. The other piece is textures for quintet, and there I it that ensemble is actually it was a historical ensemble actually.
Mm.
So I believe it's called a Pierrot ensemble or
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines, and I think Arnold Schoenberg was one of the first people to popularize it, I think.
Right.
But so I had come across that ensemble, and I felt it was, it offered a lot of possibilities in terms of texture, in terms of, the combination of instruments. And because I had a flute, bass, clarinet, piano, violin, and cello.
Mm.
So I had, like, two instruments from the wind family, and two from the string family, and piano.
Okay.
So, and each of them offer very different, sonic qualities in
Mm.
terms of, and they can all shine through in different ways. And
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by how they meld together, and how they fuse and create some greater resonance in
Mm.
terms of music and texture. So, but texture again was the primary goal of that piece. So that's why I called it Textures for Quintet. So
Very interesting one. I could probably try to relate this to yet another interesting guest who's been on the podcast, Ludovico Einaudi. Right? So Ludovico had, I wouldn't say a similar idea, but then he did something around periodic tables.
okay.
Right? So elements in the periodic table, elements being the overall idea, right? So I can draw a lot of parallels to that when it comes to this particular release of yours. Speaking of the recording decisions, right? Like recording and the production decisions on this particular one. Uh, could you walk me through some of the unique facets that you did or you discovered probably in terms of the recording aspect of this entire record?
Okay. So firstly, I worked at I recorded this album in Russia, and I
Correct.
got
Yeah.
musicians from the Bolshoi Theater.
Right.
Series
So
that
that's
was.
what, right? So sorry to interrupt, but then the theater being the main place to have this process done, right? So how did the acoustics of the theater also influence
Uh,
how the record sounded?
no, we didn't record it at the Bolshoi Theater. I
Okay.
worked with musicians of the Bolshoi Theater.
Okay. Okay.
We recorded actually at a state-of-the-art studio called
Okay.
EDRZ, and
Okay.
that is actually, I believe, the translation to English would be the State House of Broadcasting and Recording. So
Okay.
it's actually, in the USSR times, it was used as to telecast the radio
Oh,
work,
nice.
and top labels use it, like Naxos, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
top labels have worked there. And
Okay.
so, beautiful studio, absolutely beautiful studio. I went there, and the studio itself is very inspiring, and very high walls, with perfect ambience. And uh, so that obviously made it already decided a lot of things, like,
Correct.
so in these kinds of recordings, you have like a close miking, and then you have like an ensemble miking, like, which is a little far away, which is trying to capture the group as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Close miking is just for the instruments on their own, while
Okay.
trying to ignore the other instruments.
Right.
And there are like these overhead mics that we placed very high, like maybe 20 feet, uh,
Mm.
30 feet in the air, very high onto, left, right. And that captured natural reverb,
Mm.
because, what we, it's like acoustics, right? Like, there is a time difference between what the closed mics catch, and what the reverb mics catch. So
Right.
it was a natural reverb that we were creating, that really affected the sound, especially because I was looking at wind and all that. So I was very specific about the reverb, and
Mm.
I wanted it to be, I didn't want to just like put a reverb on post, like,
Yeah.
like just put a plug in and play around with it. No, like I worked on like capturing the reverb at the source,
Nice.
and so that was there on both recordings. So the recording itself decided the sound to a great extent, firstly,
Okay.
and then I the rest of it I kept the mastering, the mixing and mastering very like uh, very minimal, to be honest. Like I did not want to mess a lot with what was captured, and I only tweaked where it was necessary. I've been following this this kind of production technique for quite a while, wherein a lot of people, they just try to fix it in post. They just do a shoddy job in terms
Mm.
of recording initially, and even if there are some mistakes, they live with it. But I'm very insistent on getting things to a very high standard at the recording level. Like I don't want to edit. I've never say used auto tune or
Yeah.
things along those lines, and it has to be honest. Like if your music can't wear makeup, and yeah, it has to
Can't
be.
cover it up.
Yeah. it,
Yeah.
you can cover it up, but I don't want to cover it up. I'm trying to
Right.
be very honest in terms of what is being recorded and what the idea is. And so it's yeah it's the recording is a key role in the overall process. And
Mm. Mm.
of course, the pieces were kind of tricky, so we had to sit together two occasions and like really get a kind of harmony, like a blend, in terms of, I'm not talking about the notes, I'm talking about like the harmony resonance in terms of the musicians playing together.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, these musicians regularly play together, which greatly helps. They regularly play at the Bolshoi together, so
Mm.
that really helps when you have this kind of a setup wherein they know each other's sound, and they're already a single unit, like
Right. Right.
so. But still, the music tends to be kind of tricky, and contemporary music tends to be that way. So we had to work on it a little bit, but very glad with how it came out. Yeah. So
Mm.
that was also a learning process, wherein I saw that uh, musicians who have played together before, I had never observed this as much, because I was probably working with musicians who had not played together as much. But in this recording, definitely they're playing together a lot from many years, and I could see that difference. So I really learned that how much that can add when you play together for a long period of time. So
Mm. If we had to describe temperaments of musicians that you've been working with, how do you describe it? How different was that, and how did you handle that?
uh yeah most see musicians, almost everyone I worked with are very humble and very open-minded in terms of what they play. And they play complete repertoire music, and they play modern music. They and mine is towards the contemporary side. So they're very open to instruction. And firstly, they're of course at a very high level from the get-go. So there is not a lot that needs to be said and done in terms of my role as a producer. But there are the finer aspects of things, and the nitty-gritties at the end, and the overall vision that I have as a composer. So because I've kind of given birth to that whole project from the conception
Mm.
till I hear it, and then mastering, or all the way to that stage. So I have a greater understanding of what that needs to be. So they
Yeah.
respect that, and they and we work on that. So it's just a joy to work with them. Really, like liberated is again the word I used before, and I would use it again, because it is like anything you can imagine that is possible to play, they will play it,
Mm.
and they
Mm.
will play it effortlessly, and they will
Right.
not struggle while playing it. And and, I find myself, trying to challenge them sometimes, like by writing something that might challenge them, like so,
Yeah.
because they are at a very high standard, and I like to, try to push them also a little bit, and they're very happy to work with me, and the vice versa. I love working with them, and I've been going there from quite a while now. My last like five albums, four, 5 albums were recorded there, so it's a great experience, and I'm glad I'm building this overall camaraderie with, and understanding with them
Hmm.
as well. So that also helps. So it's a honor and joy to work with them.
Amazing, amazing. Uh, in order to speak about Visita's next transition or the next phase, what direction are you headed next, and what's next in terms of the music that you're trying to put out?
Yeah, we could do one more interview just about that. So there's so much music. Like we live in this age of, like, instant gratification, but
Yeah.
it is not the case for me, because what I'm working on today is only, it only reaches the world about, say, 2 3 years down the line.
Mm.
The time gap, lag of like 3 years happening. And I even mentioned to people that, if something happens to me, or like if I randomly, pass away or something, there'll be music for like 3 years. My
Mm.
music will, there'll be music for 3 years that keeps releasing, even if I'm not there. So there's currently, I'm working on a very big project for a chamber orchestra.
Okay.
This is about 30 musicians, and it's like
Wow.
all every type of wind instrument, and brass, and strings, and piano, harp. Is like, you name it, everything is there. And it's in a sense my exploration of textures, which we spoke about
Mm.
before. And there's also there are also some chamber pieces that are coming out with, like, that will take some time, but lots of wind instruments, like 7 8 wind instruments. With There's a piece for two harps and a set of wind instruments.
Mm.
uh, yeah, the vibraphone, the two pieces that feature the vibraphone.
Okay.
It's a string orchestra wherein I composed for 13 strings.
Wow.
And yeah, and they every one of those strings is playing at all points. so because, and yeah, so lots of interesting projects happening. They will The next release would be duos for clarinet and oboe, like,
Oh,
or
wow.
clarinet and piano, and oboe and piano, two pieces. These have been recorded, and they will be released maybe next year. So
Looking forward to that. In the interest of time, I'd like to come to the last part of our agenda, which is a quick rapid fire. You've got to be spontaneous with your answers. So first question for you, Vivek. What is that one song that always makes you cry?
Whew, always makes me cry. The last time I cried, it was I was at the Berlin Philharmonic.
Okay,
It was Ravel's Daphne et Chloe, part suite.
okay.
I just couldn't. I've listened to that piece many times, but hearing it there at the Berlin Phil, it's just a surreal experience, and I cried there. Yeah, that was
Wow,
the last
must have been quite some experience. Yeah. Do you have a guilty pleasure song?
time. Oh, uh, well, it's kind of funny, but currently I've been exploring some, K drama. So,
Oh,
so
nice.
K-pop, I guess, would be some of my. I don't even know the names of some of the songs, but yeah, I find that to be, yeah, quite calming and fun. And it really suits the K drama. That has been a guilty pleasure right now.
Okay, nice. If you were given a superpower to invite three living performers, regardless of the logistical challenges or the money involved, to play a new piece of yours tomorrow, who would they be and why?
Ooh. So, yeah, Daniel Trifonov on piano,
Okay,
definitely. Anything piano related, definitely. Magdalena Hoffman for harp,
okay,
um, and there's Camille Thomas cello. Like
nice.
this is off the top of my head. Like that was not an easy question to answer,
Right,
but yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, generally wanted to get an idea. How is Dolby Atmos doing in terms of classical music? How is it in the classical space? Have you used some of that in any of your recordings so far? How is that being received?
Fascinating question again, and I have, when it initially, started to create a buzz, Dolby Atmos, when it even like 5 years ago, 5 6 years ago, I was,
Right.
I had I had an idea wherein I wanted like spatial sound, like I wanted instruments and emanating from specific points in the sonic
Okay.
spectrum, and Atmos was not really very popular at this time. Like I'm talking about maybe you know, quite a long time back, and so I wanted that, so that spatial audio idea, I really wanted to work with it, but I have not been able to do it yet. But that is on the agenda in one of the
Okay.
newer pieces that I'll compose. Definitely, I want to include, directional music. I want instruments to be placed at specific points in a 3D spectrum. I
Okay.
want, the listener to be engulfed by this, this kind of geometry of sound
Mm.
also. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
so yeah, and I also have to figure out the the technicalities of recording it and
Yeah.
all that. But I would like to go do it right, and start by conceptualizing it from the score, from the vision and the idea. Like this
Okay.
has to be Atmos, or else it doesn't be recorded. Like doesn't
Got
get
it.
recorded, and then go from there. So I'd love to do that. Uh, and this would be like a deeper, not just directional. I would like, like in terms of 3D, like
Mm.
it's coming from on top, it's coming from, like below the soundscape, or
Yeah.
like things like that. I would like to go really deep into it, and then
Nice.
you know do something with it. Yeah.
Super. One last question for today. Down in the distant horizon, what would you like to be remembered as?
Whew. Composer who uh, brought all kinds of different music to India, like uh,
Okay.
and took India's music also to the world in the Western contemporary sense. Yeah,
Great. That's such an amazing answer for a closure. Thank you so much once again, Vivek. It's been such an incredible blessing, honor, and a privilege.
absolutely. Same here. Thanks for the questions. Lovely questions. I look forward to speaking again at some point. Yeah.
Likewise. Likewise. Awesome.